Hello, I'm Askat Sharlief and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. The relatives of Vladislav Chelakh have opened an account to collect money for attorney. The details of the account number were posted by the mother of Vladislav, Svetlana Vashchenko, on her social network accounts. The work of qualified attorney will cost them around $2,000 per month. The high cost has pushed the family to appeal to the people. Meanwhile, active internet users organized a signature collection campaign to protect the border guard under virtual petition. More details in the next report.
The blogging community is throwing its weight behind border guard Vladislav Chelakh. The only surviving witness of the tragedy of the Arkan-Kirgen outpost is supported through the international website Online Petitions, which collects online signatures in an attempt to make law enforcement agencies of Kazakhstan impartially and fairly investigate the murder of 14 soldiers and a huntsman. The virtual document was drawn up as a reaction to the official version of the incident and has already collected over 2,500 signatures. This petition is in support of Vladislav Chelakh, a young border guard who survived after the incident of the Arkan-Kirgen border checkpoint, Almaty region, Alakol district, Kazakh-Chinese border. We call for a fair and impartial investigation of his case. We need honest answers to the questions about this incident, which caused the very first nationwide mourning in our country. Otherwise, the distrust for authorities will only grow stronger among the population, say internet activists. Most importantly, the situation would take a blow at the morale of future draftees. With their petition, bloggers intend to collect at least 1 million signatures and help the border guard.
То, что все заваливают на Владислава Челаха.
The fact that Vladislav Chelakh is blamed for all this proves once again that our government and senior officials don't want to be responsible for anything. They would rather find a scapegoat. The mother of the killed border guard, Denis Ray, doesn't believe it was done by Chelakh. The woman still does not know when she will bury her son, as his remains have not been brought home yet. Tatiana Ray says that the investigation either ignores or conceals from the public a very important detail. There were dogs at the Arkan-Kirgen outpost. This issue bothers us. They found the missing horses. However, my son told me that there were trained military dogs. How come the dogs were left out of the picture? Why couldn't they use those dogs to track the bodies? It's a catch-22. Besides, what happened to those dogs anyway? Late in May 2012, Arkan-Kirgen outpost burned down at the Kazakh-Chinese border. The bodies of 14 soldiers and a local huntsman, all killed with firearms, were found inside. The sole survivor was the 19-year-old Vladislav Chelakh. By this time, he has already confessed to the killing, at least according to the General Prosecutor's Office. Now Vladislav Chelakh, whose guilt has been debated on the internet and beyond, is facing from 10 years to life in prison.
Politician and businessman Mukhtar Ablyazov does not trust the official lead of the tragedy at Arkan-Kirgen checkpoint as well. On Tuesday, he supposedly posted an appeal to the Kazakh citizens on Facebook, encouraging to demand from the authorities to fairly investigate the case of Vladislav Chelakh, who, according to the General Prosecutor's Office, confessed in killing 14 of his fellow soldiers and a huntsman. Ablyazov notes that the survivor is of the same age with his son and that he is confident that Chelakh was not able to commit a mass murder of this kind. This is farce, mockery of common sense, constitution and presumption of innocence, an attempt to hide those real perpetrators of the tragedy, writes Ablyazov.
We must not let them deal with the boy. We must demand the authorities to hold a transparent and fair investigation of the border guard's killing, and we must initiate an independent investigation as well. We must fight for Vladislav Chelakh, as if we would fight for our own children.
International Human Rights Protection Foundation demands a revision of the verdict of 37 Zhanaozen oil workers. The organization urges the authorities of Kazakhstan to immediately free Roza Tuletaeva, who was sentenced to 7 years in prison, noting that the woman was protecting the rights of her fellow citizens and was not committing any crimes. The organization also demands to conduct a thorough investigation of December events in Zhanaozen and immediately initiate an investigation over the cases of torture of defendants. At the same time, an international foundation expresses its concern over the arrest of activist Galym Agileov for participating in the peaceful protest action near the Abay monument in Almaty.
Frontline Defenders condemns the sentencing and ongoing detention of Roza Tuletaeva, as it believes that these actions are solely motivated by her legitimate and peaceful work as a human rights defender in Kazakhstan, in particular her defense of the rights of striking Ozhenmonaygas workers. Frontline Defenders calls for her immediate and unconditional release and for her sentencing to be reversed.
The dismantling of satellite dishes in Zhanaozen is caused by the adopted in January law on broadcasting. This message was distributed on Tuesday by Adilsos Freedom of Speech Fund. The authorities have initiated a campaign with uncontrolled individual satellite reception, in particular against K+ channel, say media experts. President of the organization, Tamara Kaleva, notes that the authorities explained the dismantling of satellite dishes by care of beautification purposes of the city. Human rights activists were demanding to abolish this clause when it was a draft, anticipating that it will first of all hit independent and private mass media.
I think Zhanozhen became a headache for our authorities, and they believe it has happened because local population was watching TV channels not controlled by the state, K+ in particular.
Zhanozhen residents told reporters that local authorities are taking down their satellite dishes, supposedly for city beautification purposes. At the same time, they are offered to replace them with state-owned Otao TV, absolutely free of charge. Some city residents believe that the deinstallation of the equipment is taking place because their dishes were carrying K+, which covered the oil workers' strike and the trials following unrest last December. I had K+ on my dish. I bought it recently to watch the coverage of Octao trials because other channels either don't cover them at all or cover them subjectively.
The work of the ministries responsible for social sector is not transparent. This opinion was voiced on Tuesday by the representatives of the Support Center for Legal and Economic Initiatives.
The Ministry of Education and Science has been rated to have the lowest level of information access, only 9% according to research. Soros Foundation Kazakhstan agreed with public activists that there is practically no access to publicly valuable information in the country, and the situation is unlikely to change in the near future. At the same time, there are already talks about a new document being drafted by the Culture and Information Ministry, namely the Protection of Information Bill. Experts are already predicting that the law could become another censorship tool, despite the officials' current option to refuse providing any data to the public for a variety of reasons. There are about 40 categories of state secrets in our country. Therefore, any information received by a civil servant could be interpreted as a state secret or as information related to private personal data, not subject to be disclosed.
Alihan Baymenov on Tuesday reported to Nursultan Nazarbayev on the large-scale reform of state services. Baymenov was planning to organize the reform a long time ago, since his parliamentary past. Upon his appointment as the main state servant, these ideas are being promoted more often.
After meeting with the head of the state on Tuesday, Baymenov announced the upcoming changes in the state service. At the same time, the politician, who positions himself as part of the moderate opposition, admitted that some principles of a future reform were actually personal tasks given by the nation's leader. For instance, Nazarbayev asked to pay attention to the principles aimed at elimination of corruption, encouraging high ethical culture of the state agencies, and developing the strive to truly serve the people among state officials. Thus, it looks like nothing of the sort was expected of state employees up until now. The President has paid particular attention to the necessity to ensure transparency, objectivity and fairness in hiring policies. We need to ensure that promotions are based on achievements, e-test merits, and minimizing the so-called command reshuffling in change of leadership in the state agencies.
Former co-party member of Baymenov, Bulat Abilov, on Tuesday made a speech in Moscow. The Day of Russia, which is celebrated on June 12th, was marked with mass opposition actions. Residents of over a dozen of cities, including St. Petersburg and Moscow, have entered the streets to show their attitude towards the authorities.
The largest sanctioned rally in a series of similar protest actions was held in the Russian capital on Tuesday. According to various estimates, the March of Millions was attended by up to 200,000 people. This is the largest crowd gathered by rally organizers since last December. All the protesters have voted for the action program in the manifesto, which calls for the president's and parliament's re-election, as well as a referendum to adopt a new constitution. Our children saw on TV that elections were rigged and the counting of votes was fraudulent. This is why we believe we have to join this rally. Of course, they can scare us if they will open fire at civilians like in Kazakhstan, but for now they resort to just throwing people in jail. Attending a rally guarantees you a ride in a paddy wagon, but seriously, these rallies are so much fun. I always attend rallies. I am tired of this government and I believe it is illegitimate. This time the rally was held without the participation of several opposition leaders. A day before the protest, apartments of Alexei Navalny and Ilya Alyashin were searched by the police, and both opposition leaders were summoned for questioning. However, their absence did not affect the attendance numbers. One of the leaders of Kazakhstan's opposition, Bulat Abilov, took part in the rally as well and was greeted with applause. In the last 20 years, people of Kazakhstan got used to peace and security, which we do really have. This environment was achieved not by the authorities, but by us, citizens of Kazakhstan who lived peacefully long before independence. In addition, the economic situation in Kazakhstan is improving, and people value it. Of course, there is some influence of propaganda. For instance, look at what happened in Kyrgyzstan and other countries. It was terrible. It is natural that suppressions, arrests, and provocations initiated by the authorities affect people. But still, the population is changing, and it gradually understands that processes taken place in recent years. In particular, presidential and parliamentary elections, along with Zhanaozen tragedy, raised public interest in politics. We are in the multi-million city of Moscow now, not because it is the heart of Russia, but because it is also the center of progressive social strata for all CIS states. The concentration of human potential and energy is enormous here. We have mass media that can really influence people. Therefore, it would be wrong to say that opposition was able to change something in Russia, while Kazakhs failed due to some circumstances.
As soon as precious minerals were found under the ground, it was promised to demolish the houses. Some Hermes company proposed to the residents of 3 villages to buy out their houses for demolition near the town of Satpayev in Karaganda region. However, the price and other details were not specified. Village residents have organized an initiative group and appealed to the city administration and Kazakhmys Corporation. According to their data, it was Kazakhmys who hired Hermes company. However, businessmen and authorities are keeping silent.
Local residents demand to see the resettlement plan, which Hermes company refuses to produce. At the same time, villagers complain they've become subject to threats for their actions. People living in Geologo-Razvedochny, Lermontov, and the Yuzhny Rudnik settlements are ready to vacate their homes and move to Satpayev, but only for substantial compensation. If the problem will not be resolved directly by those responsible for the situation and people involved in the eviction process, we will appeal to the general public and the MPs. The population should know about the chaos in our miners' village and about its residents, the retired and disabled former Kazakhmys employees.
Human rights defender Talas Sagimbayev appealed to the Supreme Court demanding to reverse the ruling made by Sararka district judge. In November of 2011, the judge considered the activist's claim against Prime Minister's father, Kazhimkhan Masimov. In Sagimbayev's words, the verdict turned out to be, to put it lightly, unjust.
To recap, Masimov Sr. found that some statements made by the human rights defender were tarnishing. Supposedly, Sagimbayev made them while advocating the rights of Shymkent businessmen defrauded by Kazhimkhan Masimov's company. The court ruled to recover over $2,000 from the activist for libel. In response, Sagimbayev, who has recently become a certified international human rights advocate, appealed to the Supreme Court, effectively skipping on the appeal and cassation, saying they are useless anyway. We also have Prosecutor General's office, and I will lodge my protest there as well. After that, I will appeal to the UN and OSCE Human Rights Committee to protect both my human rights and the right to live in this country.
Kazakhstan citizens risk losing their money after purchasing the shares in national companies, assesses the Samro-Kazanov Fund at the meeting of the Astana City Administration. One of the first educational programs on the national IPO scheduled to start this fall took place in the mayor's office on Tuesday.
A person has taken a certain risk and can actually lose money. The purchase of stock as part of the people's IPO should be done exclusively for disposable money. That is, we do not recommend taking steps such as selling apartments, cars, or other property to buy into it. Samruk administrators, as it seems, started to realistically assess the situation only now. Up to this point, the program has only been praised, with the main focus on its prestige. Allegedly, the program allows ordinary citizens of Kazakhstan to own stock in major national companies, although the latter are not very enthusiastic about it. However, that was about it for the disadvantages, at least according to the officials. State experts emphasized yet again that right now is the best time to buy stock, as the country is recovering from the crisis. At the same time, global forecasts are saying the opposite, with a number of media reporting about the reduction of payouts to Nobel Prize winners due to the recession. It seems, however, that Kazakhstan's stock will not suffer from the global economic trends.
Pavlodar dairy producers were ordered to pay $350,000 to the city budget on charges of price fixing, as evaluated by the local anti-monopoly agency.
According to official data, the products of Pavlodar's two dairy companies, Sud and Molkom Pavlodar, became 30% more expensive last year. The companies were suspected of price collusion. After an investigation, the case was sent to the administrative court, where the judges agreed with the anti-monopoly committee. As a result, the joint stock company Sud was fined by $350,000. The ruling regarding the second company is yet to be announced. We were talking about a total increase of 30%. At the same time, the raw milk itself actually decreased in price in June and July, stayed the same in February, thus there was no economic justification to raise prices.
The expert community in the Kazakhstan Institute for Political Decisions had the chance to see one of the most anticipated motion pictures on Tuesday. Yermek Tursunov's film, titled Shal, is loosely based on Ernest Hemingway's novel The Old Man and the Sea. Tursunov's interpretation shows the hero in a slightly different setting, the more familiar to Kazakhs' steppe and village.
This year, Shal will compete at the Venice Film Festival, the rules of which prohibit showing footage of films included in the program. Kazakhstan's premiere is planned for the end of the year. Shal is the second part of Yermek Tursunov's trilogy, with the first film, Kelin, generating a lot of publicity and controversy. The director says his new work is all about human values, a subject easily understood in any country. Tursunov says the latest trend is to make films about important political issues, but it is something he will not do personally.
Назарбаев как личность, как персонаж, мне, наверное, был бы интересен лет через 50.
Nazarbayev as a person and character would be interesting for me perhaps in 50 years from now, following the period of unmasking him, when people who are forced to be silent will speak the truth once they will be allowed. Only then this interesting character will become film-worthy for me. Right now I'm not interested because it would have been a very predictable plot and too many supervisors.
Интересная фигура, и, наверное, она киношная фигура в каком-то смысле. Может быть, будет мне интересно. Сейчас мне это не интересно.
The skeleton of an unusual animal resembling a miniature dinosaur in appearance was found in the South Kazakhstan region during the dismantling of an old house. The skeleton was unearthed by workers in the Amangildi village of the Kazagurt district. Villagers say they found bones before, but those belonging to dinosaurs. Museum staff has also never encountered this mysterious creature before.
Construction workers proudly show local residents and reporters what they have found. A well-preserved skeleton of an unidentified small animal was discovered under the wooden floor. I called the owner and asked what it was. His wife is a teacher and she said dinosaur bones were found here in the past. The workers have also found a small skull not far from the carcass, but house owners refused to show it to the experts of the local history museum, only giving them pictures of the find. Even though the skeleton looks like that of a cat, the historians say that the skull structure is different and its size is slightly bigger. We need to see it firsthand because it's impossible to tell anything definitive just by looking at a picture. But I'm still surprised with teeth enamel, which indicate a mammal and obviously not a dinosaur. The rare legs are also too long, so this is not clear either.
The exhibition of famous French masters painters is underway in Almaty despite the president's request to hold it in Astana. 44 museums agreed to showcase originals to the Kazakh public. Deriga Nazarbayeva flew in from Astana for the opening of the exhibition on June 8th. More details on the exhibition next.
From Renaissance to present days, it's been long since residents of the country were able to enjoy such a grand collection of more than 400 paintings, tapestry, engravings, and sculptures. For the first time ever, France is touring this impressive exhibit, and experts say this feat is not likely to be repeated again. Music, pictures, environment, and lighting have all been specifically selected by art experts of France. This room, for instance, is in blue shades, illustrating the Romanticism era of Louis XIII. The two prime ministers have contributed greatly to the development of luxury and intellectual style, a style that has given life to renowned artists such as Nicolas Poussin, Sébastien Boudin, and Nicolas Mignon. Another interesting section is devoted to the 18th century. The Age of Enlightenment has produced such masterpieces as the Anne-Louis Girardet de Récit-Tresons, Hippocrates refusing the gifts of Artaxerxes I. Every face is peculiar. There is a full range of expressions as Persians are persuading Hippocrates to come to their rich country, promising him fame and fortune. But Hippocrates is faithful to his land and duty and rejects the gifts. Undoubtedly, such high sense of patriotism deserves to be depicted on the canvas to make future generations remember these great deeds. The Pearls of France could not have come at a better time, as during summer holidays, a lot of people come to see them with their children. For others, the exhibition is also a great opportunity to take a glimpse at a distant country and its history for just the price of admission. We can't afford to go abroad and visit the Louvre in France, so I want to express my gratitude to all those who have arranged this exhibition. I've brought my grandsons and my daughter, and we enjoyed it greatly. I'm not a big fan of contemporary art, but the 18th, 19th centuries were truly divine. I'm really overwhelmed with emotions and enjoyed it greatly. We don't have exhibitions like this in Almaty. The French art of 16th, 17th centuries is really something. I came here with my daughter, and we really like it. 2 months ago, the president asked officials to raise the culture standards of the capital and that of all citizens of the country. Specifically, Nazarbayev wanted to see the Louvre masterpieces along with exhibits from Russian museums. We already have museums where we can display masterpieces, or at least a few paintings that can attract and instill a sense of beauty in people. If it will be hard to arrange such exhibits with the Louvre or London, I'm sure we can do it with Moscow's Pushkin Museum or the Hermitage in St. Petersburg. The exhibition of artistic heritage of France can be considered a reaction to the president's call. Mariga Nazarbayeva, the president's daughter, was invited to the opening ceremony in Almaty. She emphasized that this art exhibition was the initiative of France, and judging by the number of visitors, the population really appreciated this fine gesture.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.